What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Fantasy Files podcast, where we talk about our favorite fantasy series and topics. We're your co-hosts, Spencer and Gabe, and today we are just hanging out, talking about what we want to read next, now that we're done with Scythe and slowly making our way through the Dresden Files. So today we're going to open up our Audible Wish List and go through several books that we've come across while either looking through Audible or some that have been recommended by you guys in the community or that I've seen on other podcasts. Basically, how it'll work is we'll go through our predetermined list of books here in no particular order. I have a top three, but otherwise these aren't in order of like favorite to least favorite or anything like that. And we'll read the description for each of them. We'll play a little bit of the sample on Audible so we can hear what the narrator sounds like, and then kind of mentally bookmark which ones we're most interested in. I'm not sure if we'll actually completely decide on what to read next on this episode, but we'll at least narrow it down to a top three. And yeah, we just want to take some time to record our thoughts on these various books. First, I want to give a shout out to a book I read, because we're not really going to do, I don't think we've really read too much other stuff since our last episode, so I don't think there's really a need for like what we've been reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I did want to talk about real quick though. I read Chaos Reigns by Jared Smith recently, and he is a indie book author. It's kind of like it's like a mix of Iron Druid Chronicles, Dresden Files, and there was even some some Twilight in there that I caught.
Wow.
And so it's really cool. There's all these like, I don't know, it's just kind of like all these different inspirations coming into one book. And Gabe, I think you're really gonna like it.
Yeah, I know. I wanna read it bad.
I'm super excited for you to read it and see what you think, because I kind of went into it not expecting a whole lot. Jared Smith is a friend of ours on Twitter, and he's talked about the book a bit and said like, hey, you guys should check this book out. And so I was like, yeah, I'll read it. I didn't think I was gonna like it as much as I did. And it's urban fantasy, so it's similar to Dresden Files in the way that it takes place in modern day, and there's supernatural creatures that the main character Caleb Rains deals with. And yeah, it's such a good book. It gave me so many Iron Druid Chronicle vibes.
Nice.
And so, yeah, I think if you liked Iron Druid, you'll definitely like this.
I love Iron Druid.
Yeah, and he's talking about coming on the show, so maybe one of our next episodes will be with Jared Smith on here talking about Chaos Reigns. Let's see. So, Gabe, what are you kind of looking for in your next read? What kind of book or series are you hoping to read next, as far as like the feel of it, kind of what you want from a book right now?
Yeah, so lately I've been really itching for obviously more of like a grimdark high fantasy, kind of like the Mistborn series in the sense of like like big mysteries. I don't really good magic system too. I've been itching for more like very well placed magic system. Like I would say more like the Dresden Files in the way that it's, you don't have to like I guess supplement yourself in order to have it, right? It's just powers,
Right.
forces of the world. So that I've been kind of itching for. And so yeah, I mean it's hard to like place like exactly, definitely like a good magic system. I would
Okay.
say kind of grim dark, maybe not crazy grim dark, but something that's maybe set in like an older time, like probably not urban fantasy, at least
Right.
right now.
Okay. Cool.
Um, and so yeah, that's what I've been kind of itching towards anyways the last couple weeks.
Nice. Yeah, I was man, I think there's a couple of these that are springing to mind right now.
Nice.
So yeah, I think I'm looking for, I mentioned on the last episode that I've been having a problem with like finishing books lately.
Mm,
Because I feel like I get into some of these books and they are just so slow, and
yeah, yeah,
they might be good books, but they are so like hard to get into, and it takes a long time for the pace to quicken up. And yeah, so I've really been looking for something that is fast paced, that has good characters and like grabs my attention
yeah,
almost immediately. Like I don't mind getting through like a prologue or whatever that's a little long or whatever, but I definitely want something that once the story picks up, it just keeps going and doesn't let up.
for sure.
So, yeah, that's kind of what I've been looking for. I feel you on the magic system. I feel you about the darker world.
Yep,
And that's kind of what I curated this list to. Is I kind of made every book on this list. I made sure that it was kind of like a not a quick read, but like faster paced. Like
yeah,
it,
which is good. That
yeah,
and that would be nice. Now that you say that, that would probably be on my list as well. Something that just grabs you really fast, right? You read 4 pages and you're like, this is incredible.
right, right. Yeah. So whatever we decide on. Speaking of speaking of DNFing a book, whatever we decide on, I think it would be interesting if, even if the book is bad, even if we read it and it's bad, we
Yeah,
commit, we commit to doing an episode for it.
yeah, I'd
So
be down.
if we do an episode and it's just like a rant about how bad the book is, then
Yeah,
so be it.
yeah, so be it.
um, yeah, but I think there's so many good books on this list, and I literally went through and watched a like booktuber kind of review of each one, especially Mike's book reviews, and it like I thought it would narrow down my list and try to make it so that I could weed some out, but it just
Yeah,
made me want to read every single book on this list.
yeah, yeah,
And so like every time I watched a review for any of these books, I'm like, oh, I'm definitely reading that one next. And then watch another review, I'm like, oh no, I gotta read that one next.
yeah, yeah.
So I feel like these are all pretty good picks.
Nice.
Um, all right, well, let's open up this wish list here and see what we can see. I have a top three.
So you've already picked your top three.
Yeah, so I have a top three here that I've kind of it's not like the top three we'll be deciding from or anything, but
Yeah,
it's just the ones that I
popped out at you.
guess kind of I guess the three that I liked the most from the reviews I saw. But really, I started with these top three here, and then I kept like switching them out. And so like so
Yeah,
many books have been in that top three now that it's almost pointless. Like
yeah,
there's
yeah.
so many. I want to read every single book on this list.
Yep.
Okay, so let's start with Leviathan Wakes. And this book, first of all, the book cover is awesome.
Yeah, it does
I
look cool.
coming off the Scythe series, part of me really wanted another sci-fi kind of book,
Yeah.
and this is actually one that Chris recommended. He had read the Expanse series and said it was very good.
Okay.
It's got very good reviews on Audible. And yeah, I'm just itching for like a kind of a space sci-fi, like space travel sci-fi story to kind of fill the gap where Outer Worlds recently left.
Yeah, yeah.
Because man, I loved Outer Worlds, and I loved going through space to all the different planets, um, and just seeing like how all the different cultures are in that game. And I think this is gonna scratch the itch, because Gabe, if you liked the charter regions and all the different like kind of continents and stuff in
Yep.
Scythe, people have said that all the planets in this series are extremely diverse and have lots of interesting, just like uniqueness to them. Like each of them is their own, like, colony isn't the right word, but like society. Like each of them have
Yeah,
their
with
own,
their
like,
own
distinct
laws, own
society.
rules, own way of
Yeah,
doing things. That's cool.
right. So let's check out the sample here real quick. I'll just play a little bit of it so
Okay.
we can hear the narrator. Then the author is James S.A. Corey, which is actually two people writing under a pen name. One of them being George R.R. Martin's uh, assistant or something like that. He helped George R.R. Martin with stuff, and
That's cool.
that's of course Game of Thrones.
Yep.
It's narrated by Jefferson Mays. So let's hear Jefferson.
Okay.
When she finally heard someone moving toward her, she just tried to yell that she wanted out. The dry rasp that came out of her throat surprised her. She swallowed, working her tongue to try to create some saliva, and tried again. Another faint rattle in the throat. The people were right outside her locker door. A voice was talking quietly. Julie had pulled back a fist to bang on the door when she heard what it was saying. "No. Please no. Please don't." Dave, her ship's mechanic. Dave, who collected clips from old cartoons and knew a million jokes, begging in a small, broken voice.
So, you know, a lot of these samples aren't going to like show us what the
For
heat
sure.
of the action are, but I think
Yep.
it's a good way to kind of hear the narrator's voice and to just make sure we're not picking up a book that's going to be like really bad
We
audio or
can't stand
something.
this guy's voice. I liked it. I
Oh,
liked his
really?
accent. Yeah, I liked his accent. I think he was kind of slow.
Yeah.
Like some weird spacing in between his words that I feel like didn't need to be there, but I kind of liked the accent.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree with you. Okay. So Leviathan Wakes, sci-fi story. Let's read the description. Let's see. So Leviathan Wakes is James S.A. Corey's first novel in the epic New York Times best-selling series, The Expanse, a modern masterwork of science fiction in which humanity has colonized the solar system. 200 years after migrating into space, mankind is in turmoil when a reluctant ship's captain and washed-up detective find themselves involved in the case of a missing girl. What they discover brings our solar system to the brink of civil war and exposes the greatest conspiracy in human history.
Wow.
So
That sounds pretty
like,
gnarly.
right?
Yep.
You know, it's the one, I think it's the only sci-fi series that I have on this list. It's definitely something I've been itching to read. So let's look now at The Black Prism, which is the Lightbringer Saga, Book 1 by Brent Weeks. So I'll be honest, I've tried to get into this book before.
Yeah.
And the first chapter or two really confused me. It kind of like a lot of other books, it like drops you into this world and uses a lot of like phrases and puts you in like a situation that you're really not going to understand at first.
Yeah.
And since trying this book, I've gotten into a lot of other books like that, like Mistborn was like that, right?
Yeah.
And so I've been told by many people, a lot of people like this series, and I've been told by other people, if you can just get past that first chapter or two, then it really picks up and you start to understand what's going on. Like it's not going to be like that forever. And so yeah, and speaking of Mistborn, I've heard the magic system is incredible, and it operates in a different way from most fantasy, much like Mistborn. And you said you were looking for a good magic system, which I've been told this has, but also a magic system where it is inherent. You don't have to use like an outside force.
Okay, yeah.
And I think this matches that, but somehow, I don't know how, but somehow colors come into play. Like each magic is either a different color or they draw color from the world or something like that.
Okay.
I remember the first chapter talking about this guy who was a mage, and something had been done to him to make him colorblind so that he couldn't draw colors from the world.
Oh,
and
interesting.
He's like in a jail cell, and I think he's like spitting in a puddle on the floor because then there would be some color to it or something.
Yeah.
And so I remember it opening up that way, and the magic system, I don't know. I didn't think much of it when I first read like the first chapter or whatever I read, but people are saying that the magic system gets crazy. Like it gets really, really good, like Mistborn.
Okay.
So yeah, there's that. And lately I've been itching to go back into the Night Angel series.
Yeah.
But I think I want to push that off for a little while, for like when we have nothing else to read, that we can kind of fall back on the Night Angel series. But also it's such a big series that I think we would want to do like one book at a time per episode.
Yeah.
And so that might be kind of weird to fit in like with Dresden and like read it like every other book is a Night Angel book and every other book is a Dresden book. It might get confusing.
Yep.
So, you know, I think I at least I kind of want to wait on that. If you want to read Night Angel soon, like I could be convinced. But this might be a good way to go. You know, it's Brent weeks, and I've been told that everything that Night Angel did really well, this does even better. And of course, you know, Night Angel is all about like the characters we love, right? Like we love those characters, and that's why we love that series. But you know, everything that Night Angel is trying to do storytelling wise, I've been heard that this does it even better.
Okay.
So let's listen to this sample real quick. Or first, we should probably read the description.
Here, I'll read the description here. I was just reading it, and this sounds like something that I would like. So I'm gonna.
Okay.
It says Gavin Guile. I'm gonna pronounce that Guile because I don't know if that's right, but Gavin Guile is the Prism, the most powerful man in the world. He is high priest and emperor, a man whose power, wit, and charm are all that preserves a tenuous peace. But prisms never last, and Guile knows exactly how long he has left to live. 5 years to achieve 5 impossible goals. When Guile discovers he has a son, born in a far kingdom after the war that put him in power, he must decide how much he's willing to pay to protect a secret that could tear his world apart. And so let me just say really quick, I really like, and I think this is why, like when I look for animes to watch, like this is what I very much like the, you know, the main character being like this ultimate like power, right? Like he's the emperor, high priest. I really like the way that those stories can go sometimes when you have this like incredibly powerful sorcerer or, you know, skilled swordsman or, you know, whatever it is. I've always enjoyed that.
Nice. Yeah. That's cool. Then I'm glad to hear that. I think this might be a good book for us then.
Sweet.
I'm not exactly sure. Let's see. What is a prism? He is high priest. Oh, he is high priest and emperor. I missed that.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh man. Yeah, this does sound good. Okay. All right. So we will bookmark this one for sure. Let's listen to a quick part of the sample.
Scavengers had long since taken all the valuable arms, mail, and lux in from the battlefield, but as the seasons passed and rains fell, more mysteries surfaced each year. That was what Kip was hoping for, and what he was seeking was most visible in the first rays of dawn. The wolves stopped howling. Nothing was worse than hearing that chilling sound, but at least with a sound he knew where they were. Now, Kip swallowed on the hard knot in his throat. As he walked in the valley of the shadow of two great unnatural hills, the remnant of two of the great funeral pyres where tens of thousands had burned, Kip saw something in the mist. His heart leapt into his throat, the curve of a male cowl, a glint of eyes searching the darkness.
What do you think?
Ooh. So at first, the first 10 seconds, it was like hard for me to, it's kind of weird, but then after that, I think he slowed down, got a little more clear.
Right.
I think I could get past it. I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but I think that I could learn to like it.
Okay.
Yes.
So
What did
let's
you
go.
think?
I've learned to put up with a lot of, I think there's worse narrators. You know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean?
for sure,
Like
for sure.
I think we've been through some pretty bad narrators in the past, and I think this one isn't too bad. Let's hear a couple more words from him.
Okay.
Then it was swallowed up in the roiling mists. A ghost. Dear Orholm, some spirit keeping watch at its grave. Look on the bright side. Maybe wolves are scared of ghosts. Kip realized he'd stopped, walking, peering into the darkness. Move, fathead. He moved, keeping low. He might be big, but he prided himself on being light on his feet. He tore his eyes away from the hill. Still no sign of the ghost, or man, or whatever it was. He had that feeling again that he was being stalked.
Yeah.
That was way better. Way better.
Okay.
Yeah, that was way better.
Yeah, so this is part of a, let's see, how many do we have here? That book, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 book series.
Okay. All right.
Which is pretty cool. So
yep, that is cool.
If we like it, it can keep us busy for a while.
Yeah, true that. Well, I would say between the two we have just seen, this would be my one to pick.
Right. So let's move on to the Furies of Calderon, which is the Codex Alera Book 1. Gabe, this is written by our Jim Butcher.
Yep.
And basically how he's described it, I think he used the words Roman, not gladiators, but like Roman soldiers and stuff meets Pokemon.
Okay.
So apparently, apparently there's these things called Furies, and these different warriors can summon them, and they're kind of like an elemental, like a fire elemental, lightning elemental,
familiars.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so they can summon these things to fight for them, and lots of magic, swords on fire, stuff like that.
Okay.
Let's read this summary real quick.
Okay.
Or actually, yeah, why don't you read the summaries? You did a good job on that one.
Yeah, that's totally fine. Okay, publisher summary. In the realm of Alera, where people bond with the Furies, elementals of air, fire, water, and metal, earth, air, fire, water, metal, 15-year-old Tabby struggles with his lack of Fury crafting. But when his homeland erupts in chaos, when rebels war with loyalists and Furies clash with Furies, Tabby's simple courage will turn the tides of war.
Yeah.
It sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think just it being Jim Butcher, I think will help me, because I know that I just know that it's gonna be good. And this was written in 2005, so this is kind of an older. This is 15 years old.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, he's completed this series. I think there's 6 books in this series too. But he had written Dresden first, but before he wrote Dresden, he wanted to write a swords and horses type story.
Yeah.
And so I think this is kind of his like high fantasy, swords and sorcery kind of series. And a lot of people really like this. Obviously not as much as Dresden Files.
Yeah.
But I've heard a lot of people talk about it, and a lot of people recommend it. And it looks like he's using for these books, he used Penguin Audio, which is the same company he started using when Death Masks was released, where the audiobooks started getting good. So I bet these aren't going to be too bad. Let's hear some of the sample.
His shirt, dark green on homespun. A long cape, tattered green without embroidery, had been cast over one shoulder as the sun rose higher. No, Amara lied. She opened her eyes again, staring ahead. Fidelius chuckled. Liar. It's not a brainless plan. It might work. Amara shot her teacher a wary glance. But you have a suggestion? In your graduation exercise? Fidelius asked. Crows, no. I wouldn't dream of it, Academ. It would cheapen your performance. Amara licked her lips. But you think that there's something I should know? Fidelius gave her a perfectly guileless look. I did have a few questions. Questions, Amara said. We're going to be there in a few moments. I can ask them when we arrive, if you prefer.
What do you think? I think it sounds pretty clear.
Yep, it sounds pretty clear, and I like the fact that it's a woman too. I think that's really cool. She sounds great. Yeah, I enjoyed that narrator for sure.
Yeah, I don't think we've had too many
female narrators. Yeah.
Yeah, was Nevernight female narrator?
That is a good question. Let me hear. I'll Google it really fast.
Okay.
2 hours later.
Holter Graham. Yeah, I don't know. I was hoping I could tell it the name.
Oh yeah, that's kind of ambiguous, isn't it?
Yeah. Yep. I
can't remember.
Me neither. I was reading a couple of these reviews, and I just want to read this one because I thought it was kind of funny.
Oh yeah.
So this guy says, I love Jim Butcher. I love the Dresden Files. I love this story. I like the narrator fairly well, but I hate the horns that sounded crazy times during the story. Get real, Audible. There has to be an easy way to get rid of those stupid horns. And so that makes me think, like, I wonder if there's like, points where all of a sudden like this horn just like, blares really loud.
Yeah, I wonder if it has like sound effects and stuff.
Could be, yeah, could be. That'd be sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, going through some of these reviews. Warning, maybe habit forming.
Yeah.
No more noise, please. This is a great book and reading. However, the horns and trumpets that occur at inappropriate times are irritating and interrupt Kate Reading's wonderful narrative. Whoever came up with this idea is an idiot. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah, Lost Roman Legions and Pokemon.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
If you follow my reviews, you know that I like to roll the dice to randomly buy a series on a whim on the luck of the draw. Sometimes it's a bust. This time, it's a definite win. But if you go by how the series was created, you'd probably run in the opposite direction. Here's one for the books. Jim Butcher is well known for his Dresden Files series. Dresden Butcher is well known for his Dresden Files series. Created a fantastic fantasy series on a bet. Yep, a bet. Read on. Yeah, this is I'm not going to read this whole thing, but Jim Butcher did do this on a bet with another author, and the other author had, I don't know if he had said like, I dare you to write a book about Pokemon and Roman senators or whatever. Yeah. But he was like, take two things that, you wouldn't expect and put them together. And sure enough, he did and made 6 books out of it. So
yeah, true that. It's the power of a writer's imagination, man.
Yeah. All right. So next we have this book called The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. And this book has gotten nothing but nonstop, like, raving reviews. Like, people are talking about this book like crazy. And, I put it off for a long time because I'm not really into Vikings and stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, I'd be happy to take a, you know, I don't even know if it would be calling it taking a chance, because it's going to be a good book. Like, so many people like it, but a chance that I would like it.
Yep.
And yeah, I watched Mike's book reviews on it yesterday, and man, he had nothing but good things to say about it. He says, so Mike's book reviews said that the book is super fast paced and that the action is some of the best action he's ever read, just like the way it's written and kind of the clip that it goes at. Yeah, this book was really, really close to being on my top 3. Like, it was going in and out of my top 3. And yeah, let's read the description real quick, Gabe.
All right, so first from acclaimed fantasy author John Gwynne comes the first in the Bloodsworn trilogy, an epic of wild lands, wilder magic, where all monsters fight with tooth and claw, and the treasures of the gods come at a price. It says, this is the age of storm and murder. After the old gods warred and drove themselves to extinction, the cataclysm of their fall shattered the land of Bigrio?
Yeah.
Now power-hungry jarls carve out petty kingdoms, and monsters stalk the shadow-haunted woods and mountains. A world where the bones of the dead gods still hold great power, promising fame and fortune for those brave or desperate enough to seek them out. As whispers of war echo over the plains and across the fjords, fate follows the footsteps of 3 people: a huntress searching for her missing son, a jarl's daughter who has rejected privilege in pursuit of battle fame, and a thrall who has cast off his chains and now fights alongside the famed mercenaries known as the Bloodsworn. All 3 will shape the fate of the world as once more teeters on the edge of chaos.
Nice.
That sounds pretty sweet.
Yeah, it does. And I think, you know, in Mike's book reviews, he was saying that it's not quite grimdark, but it is a darker world, a more like serious kind of fantasy world.
So I mean, is it like a Viking style thing? Is that what? I guess it kind of sounds like it. Jarls and
yeah,
you know,
he was saying that it was based in kind of like Scandinavian lore, and that a lot of the characters have names like Bjorn and Forgerson, or you know what I mean, like very Viking names. I don't know what Viking names are.
Yeah,
but
I mean, yeah, those are them. That's it.
Yeah, and so I think it has a lot to do with kind of Vikings and just like really early civilization kind of things.
Yeah.
You can't see it here on Audible, but the book cover for this book is actually really cool. If you open the book all the way, you actually get to see that dragon goes all the way across the cover, and it's huge.
Oh,
and then
there's cool.
And then if you look in the bottom right, there's just like this little tiny guy.
I can see it.
I'm like, man, if that's the kind of battles we get in this book, I'd be super excited. And Mike's book review was saying that the story grabs you and doesn't let up, and it just goes and goes and goes, and that the action is written really, really well.
Nice.
I'm not sure if there's any magic in the series, or it's just this book so far.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's any magic in it, but it definitely sounds like a cool story.
Gotcha.
Play the sample real quick.
Tip of his tongue. He spat, rose and followed the trail of wolf blood to the edge of the glade, then stood there peering into the murk. Brecker walked up to his spear, the blade half sunk into a pine tree, and tried to pull it free. His body strained, but the spear didn't move. He looked up at Orca. Grey-green eyes and a pale, muddied face, a straight nose and strong jaw framed with crow-black hair, so much like his father, and the opposite of her, apart from his eyes. He had Orca's eyes. "I missed," he said, his shoulders slumping. Orca gripped the shaft in her gloved hand and tugged the spear free. "Yes," she said, as she handed Breca his spear, half an arm shorter than hers and Thorkel's. "It was not your fault," Thorkel said from the glade's edge.
What do you think?
I liked it.
Okay.
Yeah, I liked it.
Let
Yeah,
me,
but that is his voice I feel like will fit that the
Kind of-
demographic of where this book is.
yeah, kind of like this gruffer kind of
Yeah,
voice.
like I think of him as I can picture him as like this huge towering dude, very
Yeah.
deep voice in this. So I think that probably fits really well.
Nice. Okay, so that Shadow of the Gods, I think that's a pretty good, at least for me, that's a pretty good contender so far. We got
Okay.
Leviathan Wakes, which I understand we're probably not going to choose. Maybe that's just
Yeah.
something I'll read on my own time.
Well, no, I mean I'm not against it, but I think from
Okay.
what we've read so far, it's not at the top.
Right.
Or these other ones.
Yeah, there's so many good choices here. And honestly, like unless something else comes up, like we could just use this list over and over and over because there's so many good
Yeah.
books here. We could
This could
just
literally
read.
be our reading list for the next like 8 months.
Yeah.
6
Yeah,
months.
exactly. So yeah, whatever we choose, like literally anything on this list we choose, I would be super happy with.
Yep.
So let's talk about this will be a fun one.
Yeah.
The Alloy of Law. Oh, whoops. The Alloy of Law, which is the next Mistborn book. And I didn't want to read this right away after reading the other three because I liked the other three so much, and I didn't kind of want to like taint that with like if the next book was bad.
Yeah.
And so people like these. I think it's such a weird thing because whenever you ask somebody if you should read these, they're like, you should. They're good books, but don't expect the first trilogy. It does other things in other better ways, but it doesn't do the same thing the first trilogy did.
Yeah.
But it does other good things. It does other things in really good ways that are really fun. It's just different. It's not bad. It's not better. It's just different.
Yep.
And so, I think it might be fun to continue with the Mistborn series. It might be, if nothing else, it's more Mistborn. It's more,
For sure.
It's more of that magic system. And this
Is
one,
it though? Is there magic in this one?
Yeah. They push and pull, and they have guns. So, I wonder how that's gonna shake things up.
Yeah, they could probably do a lot with that. They shoot a bullet, then push off the bullet while it's in the air, or something crazy like that.
Right. Yeah, I bet it would get crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we see some more medals in this, some more medals that we didn't see in the first 3 books.
Yep.
Some new ones are discovered. Do you want to read the summary?
Sure, of course. Okay, so 300 years after the events of the Mistborn trilogy, Scadrial is now on the verge of modernity, with railroads to supplement the canals, electric lighting in the streets, and the homes of the wealthy, and the first steel-framed skyscrapers racing for the clouds. Kelsier, Vin, Ellen, Sazed, and Spook and the rest are now parts of history or religion. Yet even as science and technology are reaching new heights, the old magics of allomancy and ferrochemy continue to play a role in this reborn world. Out in the frontier lands known as the Roughs, they are crucial tools for the brave men and women attempting to establish order and justice. One such, Waxilium Landrian, a rare twin-born who can push on metals with his allomancy and use ferrochemy to become lighter or heavier at will. After 20 years in the Roughs, Wax has been forced by family tragedy to return to the metropolis of Elendel. Now he must reluctantly put away his guns and assume the duties and dignity incumbent upon the head of the noble house, or so he thinks, until he learns the hard way that the mansions and elegant tree-lined streets of the city can be even more dangerous than the dusty plains of the Roughs.
Let me tell you what, I love a story where somebody goes from the country and like has been living out in the country and like training or whatever, and then they come to the city. And you know, they live in city life and they're kind of discovering the city for the first time. We get a little bit of that in King's Dark Tidings in that first book. And whenever I think of King's Dark Tidings, like probably my favorite overall scene, just like the scene that like filled me with the most like happiness and wonder was when Rezkin comes to the city for the first time. And he's kind of like, why are these guards just letting people through? That's not guarding the city very well, because he doesn't understand. And so I love stuff like that. I love the farm boy becoming the hero. That's kind of a trope, but like I love that stuff. And so I actually don't think I had ever really read this description before. And
I know I haven't.
With you reading it just now, I'm like, man, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. It's cool. Like one thing that popped out here, and this is just as thought at the bottom of this thing, it says Wax has been forced by family tragedy to return to the metropolis of Ellendale, right? Ellen. Like I feel like they're hoping that Kelsier, like, you know, it says too, like Kelsier, Vin, Ellen says it's spook, and the rest are now parts of history or religion. So I would be very much interested to see how you know what happened in the last part, or I guess chunk of the series, or you know the past would play out into the modern society. So that very much interests me. Just to even see that. Like I'm sure the rest is awesome and it sounds really good, but I would be interested to see how he meshes it all together and how it can work.
That is a great point that I didn't even consider. Is, you know, we don't want to spoil anything from Mistborn for people that haven't read. But like there's a lot that happens at the end there, and it'd be super interesting to see how it plays into this world, or like what these modern people think of Kelsier, and like I wonder if his story has been, you know, kind of like we saw in The Toll, like, you know, his story was one thing, but then people made it into like a huge, bigger thing. And we even see that in Mistborn. We see Kelsier become like this huge legend. And so I wonder how big that gets in this book. And Ellendale, I mean, come on, that's gotta be be named after Ellen, right? Like
oh, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, that's super, super fun. Let's hear this sample.
A sound. Someone stepped on a board across the street, making it creak. It was so faint he almost missed it. Wax reacted immediately, flaring the steel that burned inside his stomach. He pushed on a group of nails in the wall beside him just as the crack of a gunshot split the air. His sudden push caused the wall to rattle, the old rusty nails straining in their places. His push shoved him to the side, and he rolled across the ground. A blue line appeared for an eye blink, the bullet, which hit the ground where he had been a moment before. As he came up from his roll, a second shot followed. This one came close, but bent just a hair out of the way as it neared him. Deflected by his steel bubble, the bullet zipped past his ear. Another inch to the right and he'd have gotten it in the forehead, steel bubble or no. Breathing calmly, he raised his Stereo and sighted on the balcony of the old hotel across the street where the shot had come from.
Oh my God, I wanted to listen to that whole sample.
Yeah, that's really good. That is super, super good.
Oh man. Yeah, this definitely takes me back to a couple months ago reading the Mistborn series. And from the sample alone, it sounds like it's more of it. So
yeah, for sure.
You know, all right, let's go on to Blood Song here. This is, oh, dang it, this thing keeps popping up. Blood Song, part of the Raven's Shadow series, by Anthony Ryan, read by Stephen Brand. And this is one that has particularly interested me. It almost made its way into the top 3 as well. I almost kind of wonder if this is the next King's Dark Tidings. The main character is, it seems like he might be similar to Rezkin. Basically, from what I understand, it's this guy who was abandoned by his father, who is the king, and taken to this school. I think it's called the Sixth Order. And it's kind of this place where people are trained in like crazy combat, like how Rezkin was trained.
Yep.
And the book jumps back and forth, and we're with what's the main guy's name? Let me see. It's something.
It's Valen. Yeah,
Yeah.
Valen Alsorna.
And so Valen is on the road with kind of like the King Killer Chronicles, where he's relaying his story to the scribe, the chronicler.
Yep.
And he's telling this chronicler about, growing up in the Sixth Order and becoming like super battle ready and becoming like an awesome mercenary.
Yeah.
And just like telling his story. And then I've been told that the story actually, through him telling it, loops back around to the present day. And then eventually we're like in the present day with Valen.
That's cool.
And so, yeah, I thought it would be super interesting. Let's see, reviewers have said that the beginning of the book is a very, very good beginning. Like the book starts out with a bang, which is always really great. I don't know about the magic system, but they said the books are very fast paced.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it sounds, from all appearances, it kind of sounds like another Rezkin type story, another like King's Dark Tidings type story. Obviously with a different like setting and places and stuff.
Yep.
But it sounds very similar. Do you want to read the description?
Sure. Yep. Published summary. All right. The Sixth Order wields the sword of justice and smites the enemies of the faith and the realm. Valen Alsorna was only a child of 10 when his father left him at the Iron Gate of the Sixth Order. The brothers of the Sixth Order are devoted to battle, and Valen will be trained and hardened to the austere, celibate, and dangerous life of a warrior of the faith. He has no family now, save the Order. Valen's father was battle lord to King Janus, ruler of the unified realm. Valen's rage at being deprived of his birthright and dropped at the doorstep of the Sixth Order like a foundling knows no bounds. He cherished the memory of his mother, and what he will come to learn of her at the Order will confound him. His father, too, has motives that Valen will come to understand, but one truth overpowers all the rest. Valen Alsorna is destined for a future he has yet to comprehend, a future that will alter not only the realm, but the world.
What do you think?
So yeah, that sounds very, very, very interesting, and I would agree. I can see the similarities because of King Dark's Tidings, somewhat obviously a different thing. But I'm a bit nervous to hear the narrator because I'm looking at these reviews.
Oh, really?
A lot of them said that the narrator wasn't the best. He said that there's absolutely no distinction between each character. He said every male character sounds exactly the same. Some other stuff, but let's listen to it and see.
Okay.
His black eyes met mine for a second, piercing, inquiring. For a moment I wondered if the more outlandish stories were true, if there was magic in the gaze of this savage. Could he truly strip the truth from a man's soul? Since the war, stories had abounded of the Hope Killer's mysterious powers. He could talk to animals, command the nameless, and shape the weather to his will. His steel was tempered with the blood of fallen enemies and would never break in battle. And worst of all, he and his people worshipped the dead, communing with the shades of their forebears to conjure forth all manner of foulness. I gave little credence to such folly, reasoning that if the Northern's magics were so powerful, how had they contrived to suffer such a crushing defeat at our hands? My lord. Valen Alsorna's voice was harsh and thickly accented. His Alpiran had been learned in a dungeon,
I want to hear the different
and his tones were no doubt coarsened by years of shouting above the clash of weapons and screams of the fallen to win victory in 100 battles, one of which had cost me my closest friend and the future of this empire. I turned to the captain. Why is he shackled? The Emperor ordered he be treated with respect. The people didn't like seeing him riding unfettered, the captain explained. The prisoner suggested we shackle him to avoid trouble. He moved to El Sorna and unlocked the restraints. The big man massaged his wrists with scarred hands. My lord! A shout from the crowd. I turned to see a portly man in a white robe hurrying towards us, face wet with unaccustomed exertion.
What do you think so far?
I like the way that he sounds. Like, I think
it's not a bad voice. But
no, yeah, not a bad voice. And so like even right there, I could tell a little bit, and that's what most of these reviews say. Like there is slight distinction. But here I just read. Hold on, okay. Okay, yeah, wonderful book. Most people rave over Brent's performance. However, I found his lack of individualized characters frustrating. Most of his male characters sound exactly the same, making the conversations between two confusing at some points. I had to press the playback button several times simply due to that. And then there's a couple more that kind of say the same thing. So, I think I could probably get past it because I think he sounds like his voice is really, really good. And he probably, and I heard his pitch go up and down too, which is a way that he can distinguish between different characters as well. But I mean, it's
right.
I'd be willing to try it.
Sure. Okay. So good sounding story with a iffy narrator.
Yep.
The other thing to note is it's about 23 hours long. What were some of these other ones?
Big. That's big.
Alloy of Law was 10 hours. Shadow of the Gods was 18 hours. Furies of Calderon was 19. So they're all kind of in the teens.
Okay, yeah, they're
20.
all up there,
Black
yeah.
Prisms 21. So good to know. All right, so we'll consider that one. Next we have The Promise of Blood, and this is one that I actually don't know a whole lot about. It's part of this trilogy called the Powder Mage Trilogy, and it's kind of set around the same time period as that Mistborn book we just looked at.
Okay.
And there's magic and guns. What did I have written about it here? Daniel Green, the booktuber, calls it super fast-paced story that drops you immediately right into the middle of this awesome world with an awesome mystery added center. So
okay, see, that sounds awesome.
Right. It's got a little bit of intrigue. It sounds like I'm pretty sure he said in that review that there was a couple twists that were really good down the line. Apparently, I wasn't sure if powder in Powder Mage referred to like the powder of like loading a gun or whatever.
Yeah.
But apparently the way they use magic is through a drug very similar to cocaine.
Oh, wow.
And so Powder Mage, like they're literally using
drugs,
powder
like
to fuel their magic. Yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah. Are you seeing any reviews down below or?
No, let me read I'll read the summary really quick.
Okay.
And then I'll go looking. Maybe while we play the voice thing. Anyways.
Yeah.
Civil unrest cripples the citizens of Adro in the aftermath of a revolution that obliterated the monarchy. Now, Field Marshal Tamas and his lieutenants must confront the true cost of freedom in Book 1 of the Powder Mage Trilogy. It's a bloody business overthrowing a king. Field Marshal Tamas' coup against his king sent corrupt aristocrats to the guillotine and brought bread to the starving. But it also provoked war with the Nine Nations, internal attacks by royalist fanatics, and the greedy to scramble for money and power by Tamas' supposed allies. The church, workers' union, and mercenary forces, it's up to a few, stretched to his limits. Tamas is relying heavily on his few remaining powder mages, including the embittered Taniel, a brilliant marksman who also happens to be his estranged son, and Adamat, a retired police inspector whose loyalty is being tested by blackmail. But when gods are involved, now, as attacks batter them from within and without, the credulous are whispering about omens of death and destruction. Just old peasant legends about the gods waking to walk on earth. No modern educated man believes that sort of thing, but they should.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that it has potential, but I'll be honest, this summary really didn't
I know.
grab me very hard at all.
I feel the exact same way.
Yep.
Here, I'll play the sample while you look at some
Okay.
reviews.
All leading
Perfect.
to a pair of giant silver-plated doors, themselves dwarfed by the sheer facade of the biggest single building in Adro. Adamant listened for the soft footfalls of patrolling heelmen. It was said the king's personal guard were everywhere in these gardens, watching every secluded corner, muskets always loaded, bayonets fixed, their grey and white sashes sombre among the green and gold splendour. But there were no footfalls, nor were the fountains running. He'd heard once that the fountains only stopped for the death of the king. Surely he'd not have been summoned here if Manhooch were dead. He smoothed the front of his jacket. Here, next to the building, a few of the lanterns were lit. A figure emerged from the darkness. Adamat tightened his grip on his cane, ready to draw the hidden sword inside at a moment's notice. It was a man in uniform, but little could be discerned in such ill light. He held a rifle or a musket, trained.
All right. So not a bad narrator by any
Nope.
means.
Yeah, not a bad narrator. I could definitely deal with that. So I'm reading most of these, like I would say 90% of the reviews that I see here are, they loved it. They loved it. There's one here that I want to read, really quick. Let me find it again. So, I'll try and be as fast as I can. Basically, what this reviewer said, the misogyny made it hard for me to finish this. I really like the setting and the story premise. That's why I kept up with it for so long. The narration was pretty good, definitely not terrible or annoying, but not stunning either. I found the main characters somewhat flat and often obnoxious. I got really burnt out on the male point of view characters sexualizing every female that crossed their paths, including ones of inappropriate age or relationship, or in otherwise very non-sexual situations. I got tired of the female POV characters' obstacles always being, how do I get out of this without getting raped? And then she just kind of goes on to talk. There's a scene that I, about like rape. So it sounds like it's probably pretty like dark, I guess, you could say like a grim dark-ish, at least on the borders of that,
Possibly,
very
but
sexualizing kind of thing.
You know what's funny though is people say the same thing about the Dresden Files books. Every now and then you'll get somebody in the reviews who's like, "Oh, Harry Dresden just like over sexualizes every woman," and it's kind of like, well, yeah, but that's because like there's like character reasons why
sure.
he sees women that way, because he's like completely sexually repressed.
Yep.
And so yeah, I think reviews like that have their merit.
But it's also just an
there.
opinion too, right? It could
Right.
just be somebody that didn't like the book, but
Right.
but because it was the only like bad one in here, and there's another one that says needs some polishing but has incredible potential, stuff like that. So I think I would be, and the magic, I would be definitely really interested to see the magic system, and kind of how that worked, but.
Yeah, this one says the magic system is creative but never explained very well. I often struggled to understand what was going on. I felt the collection of the three magics, powder mages, knacked, and privileged, was very random. With so much variety, it felt pretty much like any kind of magic could happen in this world.
Okay.
Yeah, but a lot of these are good. Like a lot of.
Yeah. No. Yep. Absolutely.
The narration was fantastic. Christian Rodska usually does great, and this is no exception. Magic musketeers or powder mages. Old magical feudalism versus new magic and new technology. That's pretty cool.
Okay, here. Sorry to interrupt, but I just found. So let me read this. So, Promise of Blood is a flintlock fantasy and introduces the concept of powder mages who are using gun-using sorcerers that rely on gunpowder to fuel their abilities. Powder mages can enter a powder trance by ingesting gunpowder and then manipulating bullets as they fly or explode. Any gunpowder being carried by enemies is a unique magic system and executed pretty well by Brian McClellan. The concept combined with an interesting story arc carried the book and make up for the characters, which I found to be a little unnecessary as a whole. So that's pretty cool. That's an interesting way of doing magic there.
That is interesting. This looks like a good review. The book starts at the end of a coup led by Field Marshal Thomas, who, with his cabal of powder mages, has just ousted the king and killed off his cabal of privileged sorcerers.
Yep.
A mystery unfolds when each member of the royal cabal utters the same words as they die. You can't break Krezimir's promise. Tomas calls on the Inspector Adamat to help sort out what those words mean, and this leads to a story that unfolds over 3 books involving multiple nations, armies, and even gods. So, yeah, sounds good.
Yep.
All right, I just have really, in all honesty, I have 2 more that I'd like to talk about, and that's
okay.
There's more on this list, but we can do that another time. There's 2 more on here that I would like to be considered for this round of books to read. So this one, like, depending on what we see here, might be one of my picks for this one for like the top 3 final decision. Okay. So check this out. It's called Of, Sea, and Shadow, The Elder Empire by Will Wight. Now, scroll down a little bit here and you'll see Of, Shadow, and Sea.
Okay.
This series is 6 books, but it's really like a trilogy because each book, they run together at the same time. So the same thing is happening in Of, Shadow, and Sea that is happening in Of, Sea, and Shadow, but it's following 2 different characters in the same kind of situation.
Oh, interesting.
You get it? So like there's one timeline. You're following these 2 different characters. One is in the one I have pulled up here, Of, Sea, and Shadow. It's like a ship captain who's looking for this treasure.
Yeah.
And then in Of, Shadow, and Sea, it's about an assassin who is trying to stop him from finding that treasure.
Oh, interesting.
And isn't that so cool?
That's pretty cool.
As soon as I saw this, I was like, dude, that is such a cool idea. And the rest of the series goes that way. There's 6 books and like 2.
Okay.
And I think it would be super interesting if like one of us, like we read both books, but like I would read Of, Sea, and Shadow while you read Of, Shadow, and Sea, and then we switch.
That would be cool.
That'd be pretty sweet.
Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. I agree. I like the thought of that.
Yeah. So why don't you, the description is going to do such a better job than I will explaining it. Why don't you go through that real quick?
Sounds good. The Guild of Navigators has ruled the Aeon Sea for centuries, using their fleet of mystical ships to collect trade for the Aurelian Empire. Now, the Emperor is dead. For Calder Martin, captain of the Testament, the Emperor's death is not an end, but an opportunity. He and his crew seek the legendary Heart of Nakathi, an artifact that could raise a second Emperor and earn Calder a fortune. But they're not the only ones who want to get the heart. The Consultants Guild, an ancient order of spies and assassins, will stop at nothing to keep the world in chaos. They seek to destroy the heart and prevent the world from uniting under a single emperor ever again. On the seas, a man works to restore a dying empire. In the shadows, a woman seeks to destroy it. Will you explore the seas here with Calder, or will you walk the shadows with Shira in the parallel novel of Shadow and Sea? Yeah, that sounds really cool, dude.
Doesn't that sound cool?
That sounds really cool.
Why don't we let's hop over to Of, Shadow, and Sea real quick, and let's just read that description to see what her viewpoint is on this whole thing.
Awesome. Okay, the Consultants Guild has served the Irulan Empire for over 1,000 years,
Oh,
working in the
wait.
dark.
Oh,
No,
no.
it's the
Sorry.
same one. Same one. No, I mean different. This is the
Okay.
other one.
Okay.
Has served the Irulan Empire for over 1,000 years, working in the darkness to hunt dissension and eliminate traitors. Now, the Emperor is dead. For Shira, an assassin in the employ of the Consultants, the Emperor's death is the beginning of a nightmare. Powerful forces hunt the heart of Nikothi, a cursed artifact that can raise his second emperor and corrupt him in the process. But some desire power at any cost. The Guild of Navigators, an infamous collection of swindlers and pirates, has been paid a fortune to secure the heart. Their only lord is greed, their only loyalty to gold, and they would sell the Empire's freedom for a promise of a quick coin. In the shadows, a woman works to set the world free. On the seas, a man seeks to raise a lunatic to lord over mankind. Will you walk the shadows here with Syria, where he explore the seas with Calderon? Dude, that's really interesting because like from the other point of view, you know, they make the assassins sound bad, right? And from this point of view, then the other people. So that's really interesting.
Isn't that really
That's
cool?
very interesting.
When I stumbled across this, I was like, that is awesome. Like I almost bought it as soon as I read this.
Yeah,
but, yeah, let's listen to the sample real quick of hers and we'll hop over to the other book because I think there's two different narrators too.
Okay, gotcha.
When they had to kill a grown man, the children worked in pairs. The bait, usually a girl, would lure the target by faking a crisis and begging for help. When the target isolated himself, the knife would drive their blade home. By mutual agreement, Mari was always the bait. She had long curly hair and big eyes that looked like she was ready to cry. Sometimes adults would stop her on the street and ask her what was wrong, even when she wasn't trying to lure anybody. Shara was the knife. The two of them dressed poor, but not too poor. They couldn't look like beggars.
What do you think?
I like it. I like her voice a lot. A lot. I think that would be sweet.
Yeah, that one was narrated by Emily something. This one's Travis Baldry.
Okay. Calder Martin stood on the deck of his ship, sailing into the wall of black clouds and rain. He clamped his hat down, holding it tight against the slashing grip of the storm.
I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Dandel,
me too.
Calder shouted. The sails are coming down. Next to him, Quartermaster Andal Patronus clutched his own hat and glanced up at the sails. Are you waiting for applause, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yep. That might be the best one that I've heard tonight, or so far today for this episode.
Right. Yeah, and I think the reviews are pretty good. People say fantastic. Yeah, it looks
sweet, dude.
All right, so I got one more here. So then I have the Voice of War, and this is written by part of the Threadlight Saga, and it's written by another, I think, kind of indie author that I discovered through Twitter. He's always posting stuff and seems to talk with his audience a lot, which I really like. Yeah, I think the thing that I liked most about this was the narrator. So why don't you go ahead and read that description?
Okay. So it starts off, it says, the world will change forever. While preparing for the birth of his first child, Chris Valerian is tasked with uncovering a group responsible for a series of missing threadweavers, those able to see and manipulate threadlight. With each failure, the dark voice in his head grows louder, begging to be released. A young girl from a secret city in the center of the Farinwind veers off course to explore the streets of Alkia, never expecting that her journey would end in chains. Far in the desert to the south, a young man's life changes after he dies. When Chris learns who is responsible for the missing threadweavers, they come for him and his family. He must do everything in his power to protect those he loves, even if it means trusting strangers or worse, the growing voice in his mind. Together, these three will change the world, whether they intend to or not. That sounds cool. I like that. You know, I think that would be another very interesting kind of magic system, right? Like that the whole see and manipulate thread like there's could be a lot of potential with that and the way they could take it. So that's a plus.
Yeah. So the notes I have on this is that it has a very it's like very magic based.
Okay.
And that the magic system is I'm not sure what the thread weavers are, but there's a couple different types of magic in this book, and one of them is a little bit more like Mistborn, where they have I think in this book they have like gems, like sapphires and stuff.
Okay.
And that allows them to like push and pull and do other things.
Yep.
The reviewer very much compared it to Mistborn.
Okay, nice.
It's kind of a light-hearted fantasy is what they said, and that it's a shorter book, so it's a pretty fast read. The downside to this book that people were saying is that the world could have been fleshed out a little bit more, that it wasn't super deep as far as like probably the society in the world is, you know.
Yep.
And it could have been fleshed out a little bit more.
Okay.
So that's the downside of it. Now, dude, this narrator, when I was looking at this book initially, I was like, damn, this narrator has a sexy ass voice. Like, just it's like honey on my ears.
Wow. Let's hear it.
It's beginning. He extended that same finger out toward the city, pointing toward the residential district. Small lights flickered into existence. Lamps, candles, torches. One small light would pop, and, like a rippling pond, dozens of others nearby would follow suit. After a few minutes of silence, tens of thousands of lights were burning down below them. A flame is a fickle fortune, Malicus said as he held up the book he was holding. Thorolan, one of my favorite scholars. I always think of that quote this time of night. Have you heard it? I have not. Oh, come now, Chris.
So the voice is a little bit slow, but
no, but I get what you're saying though. It's
like it's just this very smooth, bassy voice, like this very like extremely smooth like baritone.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, I really like that voice. I just want to hear it talking in my ear all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's another one. That's probably not one that I would be like, we got to read it right now, but it's gotten good reviews, at least through Twitter. There's like one review on here.
But it's brand new. The book's only been out for like 20 days.
Right. Right. And so yeah, I think people on Twitter have been talking about it and talking about like reading it and how good it was. So that might be a good book to consider at some time, if not today. And yeah, Zack Argyle.
Sweet.
There's one more thing that I want to show you that is more just for fun. Like we don't have to like, I don't want to read it just yet. Like I want to read it when we get done with Dresden Files or something and need more urban fantasy. But dude, look at this book. Scroll down and go to Death Rites, the Lazarus Codex.
Okay.
Dude, click on this thing. Is this not Dresden Files?
Oh yeah, for sure. This book's popped up in my recommended so many times.
Oh really?
Yeah. Over and over again.
Have you looked at it?
No.
Okay.
But I always see it in like books you would like. I always see it right there at the bottom. Let me read this really quick.
Yeah, go for it.
It says, old gods die hard. Professional necromancer Lazarus Kerrigan knows all too well that the big easy is anything but. Crime is up, business is down, and someone or something crushed an innocent girl to death on his doorstep. After the search for the murderer brings the police to his front door. Laz must prove his innocence by hauling in the real killer with help from the dead. When the sun sets in New Orleans, more than monsters go bump in the night. When Laz awakens in his quest for answers might just get him and everyone else in town killed. Fans of the Dresden Files and Iron Druid will love this wisecracking wizard. Get your copy today. Dude, that is absolutely Dresden Files. That's pretty cool.
So also look at, like, if you go to the other books in the series here, it's like the naming convention, the way he names his books is very similar to Dresden Files. Like,
book 10? Wow, that's a lot of books.
Yeah, like Night Shift, Shallow Grave, Organ Grind, like very similar naming convention. And you know, at first, when this first popped up, I was like, because I really hate anything that tries to like totally rip off the Dresden Files. Like there was another book I saw recently called The Jezebel Files or something.
Yeah.
And it was literally the exact same thing as Dresden Files, except that the character was a female. And I was just like, man, I hate people trying to rip off this series. And I wanted to hate this. I wanted to hate this book, that this Death Rites. But then I heard the sample, and it sounds like kind of good, like kind of surprisingly good.
Okay.
I locked the door to the shop and turned around to meet trouble. I jumped at the sight of her. A minute ago, the porch outside had been empty. She was blonde with a slight build, a little on the short side. I pegged her age between 22 and 25, old enough to know better than to sneak up behind a guy like that. "Mr. Kerrigan," she said, big doe eyes pleading, "I need your help." I leaned forward, peering out into the gray evening, looking up and down Magazine Street in case someone else was waiting for me. No one was there, so I pocketed the keys and stepped aside, jabbing a thumb toward the sign on the glass. "Come back tomorrow morning, miss. I'm done for the day." I sidestepped her and made for the sidewalk.
Does it not sound exactly like Dresden Files?
It totally does. It sounds good, man. Yeah.
Being a medium and a cult shop owner isn't exactly a lucrative profession, and it had been a slow day. Whatever help she needed, it'd probably lead to a sale, which meant money in my pocket. Unfortunately for her, I was already running late for a very important date. "Please, Mr. Kerrigan, I need protection." Her words brought me to a halt on the bottom stair. With a sigh, I turned my face skyward and counted to 3. It took her that long to come to my side, wringing her hands and looking up at me.
Yeah, dude. I was like, man, I almost bought it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It
definitely would be worth, to try it if we ever run out of stuff or whatever.
Yeah, I think maybe when we finish like Dresden Files or something, because I didn't want to do like 2 urban fantasy books at the same time.
Yep.
But yeah, I'm like, man, because I often have the itch for more Dresden Files after I do a reread.
Yeah.
And so like especially this last time when I finished Battleground, I was like, man, I just want to read more Dresden, but I don't want to go back before Battleground, or at least I didn't then.
Yep.
And with something like this, it's like, man, it's a whole new series. It's like the exact same character. And so, yeah, I think it might be fun when we wrap up Dresden Files.
For sure.
All right, so I'm gonna stop the screen share here. Let's go back to our notes real quick, Gabe. We'll finish this up so you can get out of here. So what are you thinking so far? Out of these books that you've seen here, what do you say like our like top 3-ish are, top 3 or 4?
Okay, so I would say my top 3, these aren't in any particular order, and then at the end I'll tell you which one I'm leaning towards. Would be my choice, but Black Prism, the Lightbringer series, and then the last 2, I think I've seen Shadow or Of Shadow and Sea would be a super cool interesting way of doing it. Like if you said, I read one, you read the other, and we switch would be pretty cool.
Yeah.
And then probably the Voice of War one I think would be up there too. But with that said, probably here, I'll do my top two because I think that these would be the ones I lean towards, which is Black Prism and then Of Sea and Shadow. But I have to
Right.
say that the Black Prism is very much where my head is taking me every time I try and think about which one I want to read.
Right. I know. Yeah, I would say for me it's the Black Prism, the last two, the of Shadow and Sea.
Yep.
And Blood Song.
Okay. Yep.
So I think since the two we mostly agree on would be Black Prism and Of Shadow and Sea. How do we narrow it down from there? Let's kind of go back over like what these books are real quick, not like super in depth, but Black Prism, it's Brent Weeks' other work about a what was it, like he's like an emperor and a high priest.
Yep.
I don't remember the exact like description of the book, but he's got a good magic system involving colors and everything that Night Angel did really well. This does really well. And then the Of Sea and Shadow, it would be cool to run two books side by side and see these two characters from the same story and kind of interact with each other and cross over.
Yep.
And I'm also like, I'm in the mood for so many different things, but like the idea of like kind of following this sea captain kind of person, like I've been in the mood for like kind of like a pirate story, I guess.
Yeah.
Or just naval in general. And so that's kind of like itching at me. And then of course the other book is an assassin, which we love. We love assassins.
Yep.
So yeah, I don't know. It's such a hard decision.
Yeah, it's a tough choice. That's for sure. I don't know. It's
Are you leaning more towards the Black Prism?
I am still, yeah, but even with that said though, like I'm also very much interested in reading Of Sea and Shadow. Here, let's put it this way. If we were to read both the books, I would want to read Black Prism first.
If we were to say that again?
So like if we were to read both the books, right? Like if we were to read one or the other, I would want to read Black Prism first.
Okay. So let's do Black Prism.
Okay.
And we'll nail that down. We'll do that for our next episode. I think Black Prism was, let's see here. Black Prism was 21 hours. So we could probably we could take a couple weeks to read that. And then we'll put out our Dresden Files episode. Like we'll record it this weekend or whatever, but we'll put it out in a week or so. Yep. And during that time, we'll read Black Prism so that we have another week after that episode airs, and then we can do an episode on that.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yep, sounds like a plan.
All right. And then I mean if we finish Black Prism, we could either, and we liked it, we could either keep going with the Lightbringer series, or if we were so on it, or if we don't feel like we immediately need to move on through that series, we could go on to Of Sea and Shadow or Of Shadow and Sea. And kind of knock that out.
Nice.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this today and
of course
narrowing down our next read. I'm super excited I'm excited for any of these books on the list, but I'm definitely excited to go into Black Prism and the Lightbringer series and see what all the fuss is about, because people have been buzzing on this book for a long time, and I've seen more than 15 people say that if you liked Night Angel, you would like this. You just got to get past that. You got to get past the early kind of confusion, because I think he does kind of drop you into this world more than he does with Night Angel. Night Angel had a really easy start to it.
Yep.
I think this is going to be a little bit more difficult, but I think it's going to pay off really well.
For sure.
All right. Let's end it here. All right, everyone, we're gonna wrap it up there. What did you guys think of our wish list? Tell us in the comments below on YouTube or over on our Twitter page at Files Fantasy. To support the channel, please remember to like and subscribe here on YouTube. Again, we'll be putting these on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcasts soon, probably within the next couple weeks. I'm still working on that, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening to us and for interacting with us in the Twitter community. Next up, after this episode, we have our Dresden Files episode covering Summer Night and Death Masks, so make sure you read those. Then I'm thinking our Chaos Reigns episode might be after that. Like maybe that's another thing we'll have to figure out, because I kind of want to, I really want you to read Chaos Reigns, because I honestly think it's something that you'll really like. So maybe we do a quick read of that before Black Prism. It's a super, you could read it in a day. It's super fast.
Yep.
Chaos Reigns' author, Jared Smith, wants to be on the show.
For sure.
And he wants to give out 2 codes to that book on Audible. So our listeners can listen to the show. We'll come up with some fun way that we can get 2 codes into your guys' hands, and you'll get the book for free. You'll get to listen to it on Audible for free.
Yep, that's sweet.
And that episode too will be like half spoiler free and half spoilers, so that you guys can get to know the author and get to know the book without being spoiled. And that's when we'll give away the codes, so that you can read the book and then come back and listen to the other spoiler half. So yeah, definitely subscribe to the channel, because you'll want to see that video as soon as it comes up, so you can be the first to get the codes for the book. And then we'll discuss the Lightbringer series, the Black Prism, by one of our favorite authors, Brent Weeks, on the episode after that. We'll get the schedule figured out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
All right, guys, thank you so much. Until next time, read until your ears bleed.